We would like to begin this evening's entertainment with a very, very special love song, and I'd like to dedicate this song to my beautiful wife, Lorraine. I love you.
And I would also like to take this moment to dedicate this beautiful love song to our beautiful wife, Lorraine, and our beautiful child.
So just a second. She's not your beautiful wife. She's not our wife. She's my wife, and it's my child.
Okay, but it's my child, too.
It is not.
It is too my child.
It is not.
We do everything as a unit.
We do not.
We do everything as a unit.
Hey, Tom, just because we're brothers, we don't do everything as a unit.
Brothers, we do everything as a unit.
Hey, listen. You couldn't touch my wife with a 10-foot pole.
That's right. I use 11-foot pole.
11 feet of pure commitment right there. That is the Smothers Brothers in a nutshell. Two guys who did almost everything together, argued about all of it, and somehow made the whole country stop and watch. Tom and Dick spent decades as one of television's most beloved comedy acts, turning sibling bickering into an art form. But behind the folk songs and the punchlines, they were quietly building something that made one of the most powerful networks in America genuinely nervous. And when CBS finally decided it had seen enough, they did not cancel the show. They fired them. This is the story of how the Smothers Brothers got pushed out of television right at the height of their power. If you were watching television in the late 60s and caught any part of the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour during its original run, drop a comment and tell us what you remember. What was the moment that made you realize this show was something different? From folk act to television force.
For these rare men, the sole substance was hot cakes boiled in cabbage juice. It's not so popular now. They have to sing about something else. Bought myself a bicycle, I learned to ride it well. Crashed into a telephone pole and broke it all to pieces.
Tom and Dick Smothers grew up in the LA area after losing their father during World War II, eventually finding their footing as a comedy duo on the folk circuit in the late 1950s. Their first professional gig as a pair was at the Purple Onion in San Francisco in 1959. And from there, they built a loyal following through club performances and a string of successful albums for Mercury Records. Their stage dynamic was simple but effective. Tom played the bumbling, slightly dim older brother, while Dick served as the straight man trying to keep things together. The arguments they got into on stage were an extension of arguments they had been having their whole lives. As Tom once recalled, they fought about everything growing up, including whether a window should be open or closed and who was eating crackers in the bunk bed. Their national television exposure came quickly. They appeared on The Jack Paar Show in 1961 and eventually landed their first series, a sitcom, in 1965, where Tom played an angel sent down to watch over his bachelor brother, Dick. That show flopped. Tom later said it gave him ulcers. What followed, though, was a very different animal. When CBS gave them a variety hour beginning in 1967, the brothers inherited the time slot previously held by the Judy Garland Show. Nobody at CBS expected them to be a problem. A show that knew exactly what it was doing.
First of all, I juggle one. Now two. You're not laughing now. Now three. And the crowd goes wild.
The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour started out relatively tame, but evolved fast. The brothers brought in writers who would go on to become legends, including Steve Martin, Rob Reiner, and Albert Brooks. Tom had spotted Steve Martin at a small club in Pasadena after a tip from head writer Mason Williams. He's kind of funny and really weird, Williams reportedly told him. Tom watched and immediately brought him on board. The show gave television airtime to artists that other programs avoided, either because of their politics or the nature of their music. Jefferson Airplane, The Doors, Joan Baez, Pete Seeger, Cream, and The Who all appeared on the program at a time when most variety shows were booking safer, more advertiser-friendly acts. Pete Seeger's appearance was historic on its own. It was his first network television appearance since being blacklisted in the 1950s. He performed an anti-war song called Waist Deep in the Big Muddy, which CBS censored on his first visit. The brothers fought to have it aired and eventually got it through on a later appearance. Tom was always the one driving the show's political edge. Dick was, by Tom's own description, more conservative and pragmatic. But Tom had a clear sense of purpose from the beginning. Quote, "I always wanted something relevant," he said. "I felt everything on TV wasn't accurately portraying what's going on out there in the world." The Who, the explosion, and the beginning of the end. One of the most chaotic nights in the show's history involved The Who during a 1967 taping. The band had a habit of destroying their instruments at the end of performances, sometimes with the help of small explosives for a pyrotechnic effect. For their appearance on the Smothers Brothers show, a small charge was placed inside the cannon Keith Moon kept in his bass drum. The problem was the charge did not go off during rehearsal. A stagehand added an additional explosive before the taping. Moon, not knowing this, added yet another charge himself. By the time the performance aired, there were 3 explosive charges loaded into that drum instead of 1. When Moon triggered the explosion, it was dramatically larger than anyone expected. A piece of cymbal shrapnel cut into Moon's arm. Pete Townsend, who had been standing directly in front of the drum kit, had his hair singed by the blast and was visibly putting out sparks in his own hair moments later. The explosion is widely cited as a significant contributor to Townsend's long-term hearing loss. Tom Smothers stood next to it all, looking genuinely stunned. The network was watching all of this very carefully, and moments like that one, combined with the increasingly political content, made CBS increasingly anxious about what the brothers might do next. The Censor War.
And we had a great deal of problems from that telecast, and it was all intended in fun.
By the start of the 1968 to 69 season, CBS had formalized its anxiety into policy. The network required the brothers to deliver finished episodes at least 10 days before the air date, so censors could review and edit them. Tom's response to this was to treat it as a chess match. He began hiding master tapes and sending episodes in at the last possible moment, so there was no time for cuts. He played ping-pong with a network censor on the CBS roof, best 2 out of 3, to determine whether a joke could stay in the show. He won. When CBS allegedly planted a spy in the writer's room, the staff figured it out immediately and started pitching absurd material just to keep the mole occupied. "I became extra stubborn," Tom later said. "I can laugh about it now because all my tears are gone." CBS deleted an entire Harry Belafonte segment from the season premiere after Belafonte performed against footage from the chaotic 1968 Democratic National Convention. A David Steinberg comedy routine about Moses and the burning bush became a flashpoint. A Joan Baez tribute to her husband, who was entering prison for refusing military service, was allowed to air in edited form, but only after a months-long standoff. Despite all of this conflict, CBS renewed the show for the 69 to 70 season on March 14, 1969. The brothers believed they had won. Fired, not canceled.
Now, you want to explain that? You were not canceled, as has become the trend.
No,
you were
we
actually...
were fired.
Yeah,
I mean, we left under duress.
yeah.
No, I don't think it shows
We're
up.
not now, but we were.
We're more mature about it.
So you're handling it pretty well then, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
It's been over 13 years now, really. It's been a long time.
But you're legends now as a result of that effort, don't you think?
I don't know. I don't get any respect around up where I live.
3 weeks after the renewal, on April 4th, 1969, CBS President William S. Paley canceled the show. The stated reason was that the brothers had failed to deliver an episode on time for censor review. The Smothers Brothers always rejected that framing. As Tom put it plainly to David Letterman in 1982, "We were fired. We left under duress." The distinction mattered to them. Being canceled implies the show ran its course. Being fired means someone pulled a trigger. The brothers believed CBS used the late delivery as a pretext, not a genuine cause, after years of escalating tension over content. They sued the network for breach of contract and won, eventually collecting $775,000. The show, despite being pulled off the air, went on to win the Emmy Award that year for outstanding writing. Tom had not even allowed his own name to be submitted for the nomination during the original 1968 Emmy cycle because he felt his name had become too controversial. When the writing staff won, he was the only member who did not receive the award. He was finally given that Emmy in 2008, 40 years later, presented to him by Steve Martin. After the firing, the brothers expected their careers to be over. Vegas stopped booking them. Friends, Tom said, avoided eye contact, the way people do when someone is seriously ill and no one knows what to say. They went back out on the road anyway, doing 200 dates a year in small venues, rebuilding slowly. Now it's time to hear from you. The Smothers Brothers walked a line between comedy and activism at a moment when that was genuinely dangerous for a television career. Do you think CBS was right to draw the line where they did? Or was it a case of networks silencing voices it found inconvenient? Let us know in the comments.